This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I think it's safe to call the meeting to order at 6:32. And why don't we do, when we have a screen come up, it's different on everyone's computer, is that right? Okay,
Yes.
so I'll go across the top. Just say, if you could just say present, just for the purpose of the recording. Mike
Present.
and Michelle
Present.
and Greg
Here.
and Jane
Present.
and Bill
Yes.
and Lynn.
Here.
Oh, my computer is playing games now. It just moved everybody around. Renee, I think I saw you somewhere.
You
Back off the
you
screen.
just went off, yeah.
She just went off. Christy,
Here.
I need to shut this off.
and I think, and then I'm here, Alan. And then Mary Broderick is here as the consultant that we hired in the past, and she's still involved. And then Caitlin, you are the Irving rep.
Yes. Taking Jen's
Okay.
spot.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's terrific. And did you receive all the documents?
I think they were just forwarded to me yesterday, so I have to be honest, I haven't looked at them, but I was gonna pull them up while I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us.
Did you get Deb and Renee? And Lynn?
I said, Renee's back. Renee?
You missed Deb.
I was having technical difficulties.
Yeah,
I'm back.
there we go. And Deb, did I miss Deb or did she just come back in again? Deb?
No, I'm
Potato?
here.
Oh, I'm sorry. It must have been when people come in, it reshuffles the deck. I think I have everyone. All right, so moving on. So you read my kind of notes in terms of how I feel about Greg's involvement. And when we talk to officials and so forth, I just think it would carry a little more weight. Plus the work that he does is beyond just being the secretary and treasurer. And so I would like to have a vote to add to his title, I guess, since he's doing the same responsibilities as vice chair, so that when we do covers, it can be, signed as the chair and the vice chair, doing letters and talking to officials and so forth. So do you want to have a discussion on that?
Well, I'll make a motion for discussion that we make Greg vice chair.
I'll second that.
All
Michelle.
right, so your motion, Mike, was to appoint him, add vice chair to his title, and was it Michelle that seconded?
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's have a discussion.
I had nothing to do.
Mike, did you want to lead off?
I don't really care. Alan seems
well-
to care about this and I don't, but I mean, if you think it matters, Alan, I mean, I'm fine. I'm fine either way, but.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I think Greg's doing a great job. I think he's acting as vice chair a lot of the time. I would like to make it clear, I think would be good that when people speak for the board, that they do so in a way that's been authorized by the board. And what I mean by that is, I know you guys, Greg and Alan, you work together well. You've done a lot of stuff. You've taken a lot of the load off the rest of us. But sometimes public communications leave me thinking, wait a minute, how come that's being said? And I just think it'd be better in a situation like that if you either said, this is, I'm speaking for myself, I'm a member of the board, I'm the chair or the vice chair or whatever, but this is my personal opinion, or that whatever's being said get brought to the board for our discussion and approval. So, I don't want to say that I think there have been huge problems in the past. I think there have been some problems in the past that have been hard to bring up after the fact. Oh, this letter got sent. Oh, this article got written. Well, what are we supposed to say? Wait a minute, I don't like that paragraph. I don't like that sentence, whatever, just better to be able to do that ahead of time. So with that caveat, and I don't mean that as a criticism, again, I think you're doing a great job, but just as a process thing moving forward, since we're talking about this, I thought, if I don't bring it up, then I'm gonna think I missed an opportunity here, so.
All right, I understand it. I'm not sure how it, I guess I'll try to, in my mind, make a correlation between adding the title and your comments, because I think your comment certainly could be under another section about communication as we go forward. You read my notes about having, some of the articles written and have some proofreaders and so forth. It is not my intent to bring every article that we do, that the team does, back to the a board to have a review and approval of the article before it goes in. I think everyone's heard your comments and understands, your perspective. People can say that we'd like to see every article before it goes in, because one of the reach outs now will be to try to develop 4 or 5 of those to from its inception to bring people up to date. So I hear what you're saying, Mike, and let's have that as a
Well,
parking
let's
lot
talk
item
about that
to
when we get there
maybe.
then. I mean, we could talk
Yeah,
about that when we
yeah,
get
let's
there.
have that as a parking lot item, and then if it needs to be talked about some more, let's do it separately, okay?
Right.
So we have a motion and second. Is any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll call
All
for
the
a vote.
questions. Oh, Bill's got something.
All right, Bill and then Jane. Bill?
Oh, thank you. Michael, I understand exactly what you're saying and I appreciate, and I have thought the same thing, I believe. And all that's being asked for is direction by the committee carried out by whomever beforehand. And that's not to disparage anything that's been done so far, but perhaps how we should be more conscious of in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. And Jane? Did
I
you
was
have a
just going to
comment?
call the question.
Oh, okay. Okay, so to an affirmative vote would add vice chair to his title. Mike, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Michelle,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes,
Lynn,
Yes.
Bill,
Yep.
Deb,
Yes.
Kate, Christie,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And Caitlin, as you're a important contributor to the discussion. When we actually do a formalized vote, I won't be asking for a vote. And if you want more clarification, we can talk some more. Okay. Did I hit everybody on that as I went around?
Greg,
And I
Greg.
voted yes.
didn't get Greg.
And Greg, yes. I was saving you to last.
I abstain.
All right, one abstention. Okay, and I did have a conversation with Greg about this prior to putting it on the agenda. Minutes, Greg, we don't have any, correct?
No, not yet.
I
I
literally just
I'm
got
working
back
on
from
them.
Boston. Okay,
Yeah, the last meeting
so
was very long.
solidifying- what?
I said that last meeting was very long, so I'm not quite done with these yet.
Okay, so solidifying next steps on public
Can I
outreach.
say
And-
something quick?
Yeah,
I think, again, I think Greg's doing a great job. But he's got a lot to do. And this isn't the only thing that he's doing. And, you know, we are a committee of 16 people, so I just like to throw it out there that if someone else felt that they could step up, I mean, you know, it would be nice to get minutes on time. It'd be nice to have the minutes that are missing from the website put there. And we can talk about this more when we get to task, because I got some ideas, you know, some thoughts on that. But you know, I think we, you know, we as a committee, I said that this before, you know, we put a lot on Alan and Greg to just kind of get a whole bunch done, and the rest of us come to the meetings and we go away. And for the most part, don't do a whole lot in between besides read what they send us. And, you know, if we're really going to get all this stuff done that Alan is envisioning, I think we're going to need more people to do more stuff. And that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily volunteering to do a whole lot of it, but as I say, we got 16 people on this committee. Only
That's a perfect springboard.
10 of us are here tonight, so that's 6 people aren't even here. So, you know, either we're a board that's really trying to work to get this done, or this is the Alan and Greg show, and the rest of us are just along for the ride. So,
Well, a couple quick comments. That's a great springboard, because I will be looking for people to pair up, or people to jump in on some of this. I do want to recognize that when some people put their heads together, and Mike, you recently did this with Deb Pote and others, Steve, who's not here, and Greg, and who am I forgetting? Bill. There were, you know, a great product came out of that, and you brought it back and got feedback. And so we have, as a result of the work that you did, we had a good product. And so I'm anticipating that if we break this down and we take pieces of this, that, you know, we'll be able to get a number of these things done. So it's a good springboard for seeing if we can have others step up. I did put out there that earlier, if someone would step up and maybe even alternate with Greg about doing the minutes or something, that would be helpful. Even if it was every other meeting, I think that would be really good, because it would give him space in between a little bit to, you know, produce a set. Someone else produces a set and go back and forth. So I will put that out there one more time. If someone's willing to go every other meeting to pull a set together, that would be helpful.
Well, yeah, and Mike, I appreciate your comments, because you know, at this point, it would be helpful to have someone, you know, co-write minutes if somebody wants to take a meeting, and I'll do the next one or whatever. You know, I find that once I get the video posted, you can kind of do it in double time if you set the speed of the YouTube video on double, so you can kind of get through it in half the meeting time. So I don't know if that might coax someone to step forward. That's how I do it. But yeah, I mean, I've got a lot going on, and more, you know, personal stuff that kind of got dumped in our lap in the last couple of months. So that stuff is still going on. So yeah, any help would be appreciated.
All right, and I do want to say, Mike, just so that you're aware, that I heard from at least 4 people, you know, why they could not be here this evening, and there were plans that were made well in advance of our meeting. So it's hard, you know, for scheduling. So it's, even if people aren't here, but if they're doing work in the background, that's extremely helpful. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, and I'm so glad Mary's here, because maybe I can take a breath here, and also we can benefit from your experience. Mary was sent the list as well. So welcome, and thank you for joining us. So the first item was talking about, now that we have the slide presentation, you know, one of the key last connection to this would be that we develop some scripts, so there's some consistency in its delivery, particularly if it's going to be different people that are presenting in the different schools. So I had put out there the idea that that we actually got from one of our forums saying, well, it's the elementary parents and kids that, you know, would benefit from this as they move through the system. And we've been focusing on middle school and high school, and we should be doing presentations in our elementary middle schools, as well as the Irving, who, you know, tuition their kids in. So that is why you see that on there as the schools that maybe we ought to be considering doing presentations in and connecting with the principal, the PTO, and making those connections. So just staying on that point then around the things that need to be coordinated and logistics of the slide presentation, open to comments. And if you don't mind, I'd start with Mary, if you don't mind, because she's facilitated a lot of different things. What are your thoughts about what needs to be added or changed or approaches? And we can't hear you. Yes, we're looking at that list, page 2. Page 2.
Yeah. I actually thought this made a lot of sense. I think you do want to make sure somebody from within the community is co-presenting, if at all possible. I think that was your intent. And I think it would be very interesting, especially if there are people who are parents. I'm sure there aren't a lot of parents of elementary age kids on this committee, but there are some, right? No. Because no, maybe in Irving, okay. But it does, the most important thing is to convey that you are of the community, and I think you have done that in the PowerPoint very well. I do think if you want people who aren't as well versed in the topic, you're absolutely right, Ellen, to have the talking points really clear for people. The most important thing is for the people who are delivering this to feel comfortable with it and committed to it. So those would be the observations I would make about it. But I think you've done a really nice job of laying it out. The one other suggestion I had as I was reading through it, and maybe you don't want to get into public relations yet. Do you want to go there?
Yeah, that's going to be another topic I hope we get to. So just looking around at this logistics, is there, I guess it'll require a couple of people getting together to write a script. And then, you know, people would tweak it and you know, make sure it's reflects what we all believe and feel and should be the message. The slide presentation sort of talks in and of itself, but you know, the comments in terms of going along and making sure and they support the script and keeping to that script as much as possible until you get to questions is important. So is there anyone that's interested in well, I don't know how you want to proceed. You could have 1 or 2 people look at each school. That might be manageable, where you make a contact with the school and coordinate the activities as kind of outlined on this. This is assuming the script is being done. The script is being worked on and people are trying to set up when we could coordinate this. And that would require a timeline, which would be contingent upon when we have the script done. Mike?
Yeah, could we take a step back and confirm what we see our goal is here? Because Alan, you had mentioned something about shooting for some kind of town vote before a district agreement is produced.
Yeah, let me just talk about that a bit. Whenever we feel that we have enough information to make a recommendation to the town, I believe, and I know this is my personal opinion at the moment, I believe we're a little bit on a different track than the Berkshire Group. And that before all the effort goes into developing a regional agreement, and we would have to write a grant that would cover a lot of pieces to it. One facilitator may be looking at a more substantive salary schedule and what that would look like. Another facilitator might be focused on cleaning up and clearing up the financial pieces. Someone else would be looking at, well, and those tie to the regional agreement, meaning which formula are we going to use? Are we using the state formula? Are we going to have something of our own formula with a 5-year average and maybe the state, and do a blend? So that would be a facilitator working with town officials, finance committees to see the pieces of that regional agreement. That's if, or predicated on, what I thought would happen was we would go to the towns with a recommendation, and let's say the recommendations go forward. Obviously, if it's not, then that's pretty simple. But if we're going forward, then we would want a vote of the towns to say, we would like you to pursue the development of a regional agreement. And if that happens, then we would go to the next step and start working on that and bring something to the towns, because we sort of have their blessings to do that. I'm a little hesitant about, jumping, we're making a recommendation, waiting to get a regional agreement to bring to the towns to say, okay, we've been researching it, we're recommending that we go forward. And by the way, and here's a regional agreement, because the development of the regional agreement in and of itself is going to require so much input at all the town levels to put that document together. And you want those people to know that the will of the people was for us to actually do that work. And if that goes to the towns for a vote, then they know that their select boards or finance committees or whoever they're appointed to work on that had a say in that. And then there could be a real lively and productive discussion on each town meeting floor. So I think Greg was, when he was sort of giving a review, I think he had in mind that the last step would be a regional agreement to bring to the towns, not necessarily the next thing that we'd be bringing to the towns. Greg, do you want to clarify that? Because I think the Berkshire Group, where they're trying to build a school and decide if they're building it for 1,000 or 600, they're really pushing this forward and in the process of developing a regional agreement. I don't think we're in that boat. We have a different situation. So
yeah, I think
you want to share your thoughts?
I think you're right on. I think they're in a different situation because they're under the gun to meet their MSBA deadline for, what size school are they going to build? So I think they just decided to move forward with the district agreement, sort of knowing that the towns did want to merge. They're more worried about losing the MSBA loan by not making the deadline and not moving forward with it. So they haven't brought it to the towns to vote, but are already drafting their regional agreement. At least,
So
Well,
that,
yeah,
Mike, what I'm hoping happens is that through the process of going out, reaching out to the public, having our forums, getting more information, getting our last survey, getting all that together, we as a board then can deliberate and then decide if we want to bring this to the towns to ask them for their approval to go to the next step for looking at a regional district agreement.
I mean, here's the thing, Alan. I mean, I think that we'll want to reach out to the towns and in particular the select boards. I'm not sure if they need to, in this case, call a special town meeting for that kind of thing. It may be just they have a, you know, an open meeting for the select board and put it on the agenda and try to make everyone aware of it. And have it open for discussion at their meeting, and then they give us the go-ahead as to whether or not they think we should go forward. Is that what you're thinking?
No, I was thinking it might, and again, we can decide how to do this. I was thinking we'd actually put an article on the town meetings if we're ready to make a recommendation. If we can do all the things that we just said, reaching out to parents, getting feedback, doing the presentations, getting things in the article, articles in the paper, doing a survey, and reviewing all the things that we've learned over the last 3 years with all the consultants. At that point, we should be able to say, yes, we think we should pursue this and see, or no, we don't think we should. And
So you're saying well, let me just, so are you saying?
and bring
you
it to a
wanna
town meeting vote to give
but-
us their blessing, basically.
And you're talking an annual town meeting? Annual town
Yes.
meeting? So in May,
Yes,
so you're talking as far as
Yes.
May.
Does it have to, well,
I'm talking in May, if we can get all the feedback we need and as a board, make a be comfortable making a recommendation. So we'd have to get something to the towns at least by March.
oh,
To put it,
Montague,
well, to put
yes,
it on, to
March.
put an article on the warrants, yeah. Sorry,
I
Mike, go
think
ahead.
I think that's overkill. And I'm not sure. I think that the idea of getting some kind of feedback from the towns in some form, whatever we mean by the towns, about proceeding before we put the effort into crafting one or more potential regional agreements. And there's the question right off the bat is, what about Warwick? Are we talking a 6-town region or a 5-town region? We could be, according to my reading the law, we could draft different regional agreements for different scenarios and present all of them with recommendations to the towns. So we're not limited to one regional agreement. But the way the law reads to me, and I'm not a lawyer, is that when we make our recommendation formally to the towns, the recommendation is to form, one or more district, a choice of one or more district, which is defined by those regional agreements. And I think that it's one thing to get a kind of a general sense for the towns of, why don't we go ahead and keep this process going, so do a regional agreement. That's not a formal vote by a town meeting, but is more a sense of the select board, maybe in consultation with the finance committees, maybe in consultation with school PTOs. I don't know that, we can think about how that's gonna work. But I think certainly in Montague's case, the final decision, what the regional agreement actually says about things like how big a school committee do we have and who are the members, and how will the assessments be figured out? And is the Montague's compact going to be preserved? Other towns may not care about that stuff, but I think people in Montague are going to care about that stuff. And so to say, well, do you want to form a district? We don't have an agreement yet. What do you think? People are going to say, well, we want to see the agreement. So I don't think you can get a real hard yes. You might be able to get a hard no ahead of time for people to say, I don't like the idea at all. But I don't think you're going to get a hard yes. And so we shouldn't shoot for one. Instead, we should
So
figure
Mike,
out a process that gets us to either a no or a soft yes that allows us to proceed.
staying on that point and blending that back to Greg, during this outreach that we're doing now, and let's say taking the blessing of the town through a town meeting off the table, we should be able to get through this outreach a pulse of the leadership in the towns on how they feel about us continuing this process. So that can be part of the outreach, because we'd be meeting with town officials and having conversations about that. and doing presentations to them. So
And we can ask them to
could-
take, you can take a sense of the select board vote, or a sense
Yeah.
of the finance committee vote, or a sense of the school committee vote, whatever.
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Which I
Alan.
think we should ask for. I think we
Yeah,
should
you
ask
know,
for
I think
something
it's-
along those lines.
I think Mike's right. I think that's why I was asking if he wanted to bring it to the select boards, because, you know, you're looking in as Mike said, for more of a soft yes, because if you bring something that's like, do you want to move forward? And it sounds like we're asking if the towns want to regionalize, so that we can move forward with a disagreement. I think Mike's correct. I think that you're going to wind up with a no, because you're not going to, as much as people, here's the thing. As you know, Alan, being on a select board, as much as people want something, often the most people that show up are the ones that don't. So you gotta be thinking ahead in terms of making sure you get your soft agreement to move forward, and then bring them. I think he's right. You want to bring your regional agreement at the end, and be, promoting it. If we think it's worth promoting, then we should feel free to do that, for the right reasons, whether it's educational or other.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. Renee?
Yeah, I apologize. I've certainly not been at the last several meetings. My schedule just hasn't allowed for it. And I understand the point brought on early by Mike about people being willing to do things. And, but the reality is, for me anyway, and I want to just speak my truth, that we've been at this for 3 years now. And the original charge in my mind was, or my understanding of my role as a community member serving on this committee, was to make a recommendation based on the consultants that we elicited help from and the community forums we were holding. And as I hear the conversation and read the PowerPoint, I'm left wondering, like, have we made an informal decision already that we support this work? Like, I don't know. It feels like we're putting the cart before the horse in terms of these conversations. Like, maybe we do need to go back to the select boards and show them this PowerPoint and get some direction. It feels like we're making plans that I don't know. Maybe we do a straw poll here tonight. Like, do people think this is what they thought it was based on what we know to date? And the reality is that Warwick has, we're not looking at the same organization that we were looking at 3 years ago when we started this work. So there is a imminent removal of one town from this work. Like, again, we're not who we were when we started, and that's the reality of change and how the world works. Like, I'm not pushing back against that. That's just real. But I
That's a
don't
good
want to
point, though.
spin my wheels, and I have a lot to do and a lot, as you all do. I mean, I'm hearing that from all of you. And so maybe this has lived its life. I don't know what people are feeling, but in reading the PowerPoint, it feels like we've made an informal decision to move this forward. Is that what all the members feel? And again, I realize I speak from a place of not knowing as much as I could and should know, but in reading the notes and keeping up to date, I feel like I get a sense that we made a decision, but we haven't named it.
Well, if you got that sense from the PowerPoint, then in my opinion, the PowerPoint is flawed. Because the PowerPoint was intended to be a presentation of what we found. And if it suggests that a decision has been made, then it's more than that.
Yeah. And
So
I'm
it's
just
unfortunate. I understand. I hear what you're saying, but it's unfortunate that, we couldn't have had the benefit of that point of view when we were talking about the PowerPoint, because we might have been able to fix that, because I think,
Well, and I mean,
I
had
think it's
that
important. sorry.
I had that
don't mean
sense
to-
when we ran the other community events too. Like, I feel like at some point we shifted, but we haven't named it. But maybe that's just me. And again, I came aboard wanting to be curious and to learn more and to help affect the positive change for public education in our rural community. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I just want, and maybe I'm the only one feeling this, and maybe it's because my inability to fully participate. So I apologize for that.
I just want to say, I don't think the PowerPoint, I mean, I know I helped with the PowerPoint. PowerPoint clearly says we have not made a decision. We are presenting the data from the two consultants. And I would say the two consultants groups, both of them were the same, right? They both presented the idea that it would make sense to regionalize. It's just a presentation of what we've gotten and also feedback from teachers and parents. So if it reads like we're going in that direction, this is just what we've discovered. We've not discovered a whole bunch of things that lead us to a different direction. So I think the PowerPoint is based on facts. It's based on the evidence. I don't think there's an opinion there. It very clearly says, we as the committee have not made an opinion. This is what we have found based on our research. I vote absolutely not going back ever again to that presentation unless there's a serious error in data. We worked on it, we slaved over it. Rain and I did an original one a long time ago. Like, I just want to put that out there. It is based on what we discovered, and what we discovered could be seen as a positive thing for regionalizing. But we as a committee have not made that decision. I don't think it can read as it's a terrible idea. And I think what we want to do right now is present it so we can get more feedback from people. I think that is the goal of it. I don't think it's, this is how we feel. I think this is information. I certainly feel it's important to combat like that very misleading article that was in the paper, which made it seem like, you know, it was a done deal, or that we were going to close down a school. You know, that article was very damaging, I think. So, I mean, again, I'm speaking from my perspective and my time on this committee, and having been really present for the last few meetings and participating more actively. And I worry about having it have to go to a vote. I would rather have some support from the boards to say, yes, keep going, if that's what you found, or again, presenting it and continuing to get feedback from people. But that's my 2 cents. But I appreciate what you said, Renee, too.
Well, and I appreciate it too, and Renee, thank you for speaking up. You know, I worked on the PowerPoint too, and I think we tried to do our best in putting it together. I think we as a board have focused a lot on the potential educational benefits. I think that may be partly because the consultants that we hired focused on the potential educational benefits. They were not very familiar with our communities, and they focused less on challenges and potential problems. And the PowerPoint, the PowerPoint has a lot more slides about things that could happen if the regions were combined than, how do I put it? Things that might go wrong, things that, you know, things we should be aware of. And yet some of those were certainly raised in some of our forums. But I don't think we as a board have spent as much time investigating them. I think it's been maybe easier to investigate the educational benefits because you know, we hired Mary and she convened some teachers and they were able to sit down and come up with a list. I'm not sure how we would have a similar exercise to say, well, okay, what are the problems? I'm not sure how we would do that. So that may be, just a sort of a difficulty, a structural difficulty in trying to present all of the information. I think that Deb is right that we presented what we found. Well, what we found may have been weighted in certain areas based on, what was relatively easy to find and what may have been harder to find. So I'll just toss that out there. But I personally haven't made a decision about what I think.
Mike,
And
I
I do
think-
think that a reason to go out to people in the towns is to get more opinions. One of my goals for this process that we're talking about is to try to educate a lot more people about what we've done, what we maybe haven't done, what we've learned, what questions may still be out there, so that there could be a bigger conversation than just the 12 or 14 people who show up at these meetings.
Yeah, and I was very
So-
pleased and participated in the last round when Mary did the small groups at each town and where whatever point that was in it. Like I participated in the 3 Berniston meetings and felt like community input was very valuable and helped me to answer a lot of my own questions and really fuss that through. But I guess I just want us to keep a shorter view rather than the longer, if that's our next step, to seek more feedback. Like, I don't, no way are we at the point to put this at the town meeting or to think about a regional agreement. Like, those are way too far away for me if we are still in the seeking feedback piece of the puzzle, which that's where I thought we were. And I'm not saying that and I didn't mean to imply that the PowerPoint itself says we have an opinion. That's what I feel like I'm hearing here in the meeting sometimes when I attend.
So let's stay back. I think every point that's being made is a really good point. And in a way, I feel like other than me removing, okay, we won't have a target, of bringing something to get the blessing of the town. I think we're all saying the same thing. And that the next steps that we're doing is public outreach. It's providing information. It's a good, Mike did a summary really of, getting the word out, educating people, and then, getting more feedback. And I would imagine through the parents and teachers in the schools, from the communities and the select boards and finance committees, the outreach that we're doing in the communities that we sort of highlighted, and these would be the next steps. Once we have all that information, we should be getting closer to being able to sort of call the question as a board and say yes or no about bringing it forward to the towns. So I think we're all saying the same thing.
Hey,
And,
Alan, sorry, just want to
and,
interrupt.
yes,
Michelle's had her hand up for a while, so.
Well,
oh, I don't
early-
even see it.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
No, did you put it up like in the chat? I don't see any
Yeah.
picture of it. If you're raising your hand, I apologize. Go ahead,
okay.
Michelle.
A smaller scale, I think it is time, and I think someone else said it. I think we should get a pulse of the leaders of each town. There has been a lot of changes, especially in Leiden. And I think there could be changes in every other town. So the leaders that asked us to form this may have changed. So we need to get more information to those leaders, whether it is the PowerPoint or whether it's each of us going back to our towns and just asking them what they think will be more valuable to them. And because I don't want, I've had a lot of feedback since the presentation, but there was only what, 8 or 9 in Leiden? But people keep asking me, what's going on? What's the next step? I don't think they've heard enough information from us. I think there's been too much pause in between what we're feeding the media or getting back to the leaders, because it was the leaders that asked to put this on each annual town meeting. And they have not received personal feedback, I don't feel. But
Okay, I'm gonna
also
call on-
we have two new select board members who don't even know what's going on, really. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, Michelle, that's excellent. I'm going to call on Jane next. I think that's what we're trying to do next, is bring all this information and try to be consistent about it to the town officials. And so they have information to be able to start thinking about an informed decision on what their thoughts are. Without that, they're just missing too much of a piece. So I think it's our obligation and duty now to share what we've learned over the years, get that information out so they have it before we're asking them for their opinion. I think that's on us to provide that. Jane?
I think we should do a presentation to the select boards and ask the select boards to include the finance committee in their meeting. I think we should do the presentation that we've prepared, show that to them and have a discussion with them and ask them if they feel their town wants us to continue this process.
Jane, why the finance committee? Why that?
Well,
Why
because,
not just the select board?
well, it could just be the select board.
I mean, the
But I
finance
think-
committee means you're assuming that the finances are what's most important then.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, then I would say leave it out.
Well, leave it out.
I disagree.
Can I finish my statement?
I mean, finances are a part of it, but
Can I finish?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
just,
Go ahead,
I'm
Jane.
sorry, I haven't been here for all of this meeting because my husband has required me to leave, and I apologize for that. So I may be going over things that you've already done. But one thing I have noticed when I've been here is that we interrupt each other. And I think we got to stop that. That's an aside. I had no intention of saying that until this moment. But I think the presentation should be made to the town officials and seek their input. And the input I would seek from them is, should we go ahead and present this to each of the elementary schools and the high school groups? And I think we should remember, especially in the Pioneer District, that it was the towns that voted for this. The school committee did not. And certainly it's obvious that the administration of the current Pioneer Valley District is not in favor of anything like this. So I don't know how much cooperation we're going to get in that corner. We may have to figure out a way to push that question, because certainly the quotes in the paper are very negative as far as this process is concerned. Anyway, my vote would be to present very, very soon, within the next month, as soon as we can get on select board meeting agendas, what we've got, and ask for their direction. And tell them that just because you told us this doesn't mean that's what we're going to do, because we have 6 towns to consider. Thank you.
Jane, can I, are you, what you say makes a lot of sense. Are you under the impression that, I mean, obviously it helps if the district sees that the benefits or not of a merger, but are you under the impression that we need like a vote of the school committee to go forward? Because this is.
No, I'm
formed-
not under the
Okay.
impression that we need a vote of the school committee, but I would like the superintendents of the 2 districts to be at least neutral and preferably in favor of this research and this continuing to go towards one district. To me, I just care about the education of the kids. And these little districts are not going to do it. Our kids are going to be turned out into the world totally unprepared. And even joining together these two districts isn't the greatest, but at least it's a step forward so they can have a little bit more education. And I'm getting really hot under the collar about that, as you can tell. And I know it probably is going to cost more, but you know what? Staying individual is going to cost more. And maybe if you could really project that, you'd find out that the more for two separate districts is greater than the more for one district.
Yep.
Thank you, Jane.
Yep,
Mike?
thank you.
I think that Jane's idea of presenting to the select boards, and I would include the finance committees with that, is a great idea. I maybe partly because I came up with the same idea myself, thinking going ahead, do we really want to try to present to all these different groups? Or should we start with the select boards? And I think the finance committees are important because no, finances aren't the only factor here. They may not even be the main factor, but they are a big factor. I think that it's been obvious all along that if money weren't a problem, things will be different. But money is a problem for all of us. Maybe not Irving, I don't know. Maybe not Leiden, considered to be a rich town, but the rest of us, it is a problem, or at least a consideration. And I know in Montague, the finance committee is very active and involved, and in fact has a member of the school committee on the finance committee. So I think that in Montague, at least, a joint meeting of the selectmen and the finance committee would make a lot of sense. Before doing that,
Jane, your hand's still up. Do you mean to have your hand still
No,
up?
I put it back up because I wanted to make
Okay.
a point about Warwick. This is
Okay, wait a minute,
six
before you do
towns.
that, wait a minute, Jane. Mike, were you done? I'm sorry, I just want to,
no,
Mike,
no, I'm not
Go ahead.
done.
Yeah.
Before we have any meeting with anybody, I think there's some things that need to be done. Number one, we're talking about having a script for the slideshow. My suggestion is that if we write a script, we have someone, maybe more than one person, narrate that script with a slideshow and make a movie of it. That could be shown on Community Access TV. That would be shown at all the meetings, so we don't have to worry about individual people having to read a script or whatever. We'd have the movie that would have whatever it was, and that would just be presented, okay? And I think that our website needs work. We have been saying for years, if you want to know more, go to our website. And I don't know about the rest of you, my personal opinion, I've gone to the website and I know what I'm looking at. And if I didn't know what I'm looking at, I wouldn't know where to start to find anything. And if I were a selectman who saw a presentation and was told, if you want to know more, go to the website, I think I would get frustrated. I think I might spend a little time poking around, but if I didn't find what I was looking for, I think I would say, well, forget this. So if we actually think that there's useful information on the website, and I do think there is, then I think we need someone, and I know Greg has put the website together, and this is not a criticism. I think he's done a great job, but I don't think it's ready for prime time in terms of the general public showing up and easily sort of being directed to whatever it is they might want to find. And if we're going to get consultant dollars, maybe that's a place for a consultant to come in and help us with a design of the website. I don't know. But anyway, I do think the website needs work. Some of the documents on there, I think should be changed. There's some information that isn't there, like our minutes and stuff, that should be put there. And so I think those two things should be done before. So in terms of saying we should get on the agenda for the next select board meeting, no, I don't think we should. I think we should have those things in place. I think we should have everything in place so that when we start talking with people, and we say, here's the information, if you want to know more, here's where you go. People can go there and easily find what they're looking for. And so I'm done.
All right, Greg, I'll give you a chance in a minute. I want to address two things that were said, but I want to go to Jane first, and then I'm going to make a comment, a pushback comment a little bit, and then I'll go to Greg. Jane?
Well, I wanted to point out that Warwick voted as a town to do this exploration. And I don't think we should, because they were going to leave the district, I do not think that removes them from this process. I think that's up to the town of Warwick. If they want to say, hey, we got into this 6-town thing, we don't want to be there, that's fine. But I don't think we should decide that because they are not part of Pioneer after next year, that they're not part of this district, because this was the vote by the towns to create this group. It was not a vote of the school committees. Okay. And
Okay.
my question to Mike is, who do you know that's going to make this movie? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, don't answer that right now, but I think that's an excellent point about the movie. Now I'm going to give a little bit of a pushback. And that is, as a select board person and having done it before, I do not, first of all, I don't think we ought to delay this anymore by waiting to have our website tweaked or improved or whatever. So if someone wants to take a vote to move that forward, but I would totally be against delaying it to have that done. I think, however, it's a really good suggestion because we may be writing a grant for significantly more dollars to maybe bring someone in to look at the good work that has been done and see if that can be organized a little differently or whatever. So that's a conversation for a different time. I do want to have kind of both Jane and Mike, I respect what you're saying about sitting down with the select boards first, but I disagree. In the fact that, yes, there should be a meeting with the select board and we should present information. But the select board represents the community or we hear what the community has to say. And so I think it has to be done in concert with the parents and the community, getting information, hearing more about it, sharing their input, because we'll do a similar presentation to the select boards. And then they won't just be like in this little bubble by themselves. They can get input from a lot of the stakeholders within the community, whether they be business or school employees or whatever. So I would push back on that point and say everybody should get it, including the select board. And then once they've had some time to marinate it, then come forward and use all that information, and then ask them once they've had a chance to weigh in on do people still want us to pursue this? I think that would be a logical way to go forward. Greg, did you want to comment at all?
Yeah, sure. Well, a couple of things. The website, I agree, Mike. It's not a professional website. It's a Google site. We just don't have any resources, and I'd be more than happy to turn it over to a professional webmaster and have them do it. If any of you want to set up a website, feel free. It takes a lot of time to do it. It takes a lot of time to republish things. And I have a full-time job, plus. So, I unfortunately can't get to, constantly updating the website. With that said, though, I mean, looking at our district websites, which are, I would say, marginally better than my website that I created, and they have a lot more information that they have to include in them. Our information is actually pretty easy to find. I mean, the reports are under reports. And all the reports are there. I agree that the minutes maybe aren't up to date. I try to update them as often as I can. I don't feel so bad knowing our own select board minutes in my town are probably 2 years behind because of the pandemic. But you know, I mean, to your point, yeah, I mean, if we want to throw money at that, I'm happy to bow out. I'd love it. Because it's a lot of work. And, you know, every time I do minutes, it's at least, you know, it can take me upwards of an hour to 2 hours to do the minutes. And then, you know, repost those minutes and send them out and the whole bit. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot of work. And it's too much for me, for one person. So, I'm happy if, you know, we want to put that into a grant. I will say about the, you know, is Renee still here?
Yes.
Yeah, so Renee, I just, you know, I did want to make a comment on the PowerPoint. A couple of things to keep in mind. It may sound positive and it may sound like we're talking up the educational side, but those are the facts. I mean, those were not, you know, let's overinflate the positive. So I understand Mike's, you know, the challenges, but we did go through this the last meeting. The challenges are hypothetical. The positive things that we came to the conclusions in terms of more flexibility, more course offerings, more robust program, those aren't hypotheticals. Those are real. Those will happen. I mean, if you double the size, we cannot control the hypotheticals. We cannot control whether people are going to vote with their feet and all leave the districts. We cannot do that. We can't make those assumptions. We have to go with, these are the schools we have, these are the enrollments we have, and if you combine them, this is what would happen. I mean, those aren't hypotheticals. I mean, that's coming from very experienced teachers, including myself and others on this board, as well as the teachers we spoke with in both districts, and they agreed. So those positives are not, you know, saying that we've made up a decision, but they are significant benefits. And that's not to say it's hypothetical. So the challenges were more hypothetical. You know, what about the cultural distance? We don't know. We just don't. You can't, we as a board, can't take those things on. It's not a part of our charge. And we can't predict what the community is going to do. I mean, those are hypotheticals. We don't know. We could go down that road and spend years trying to figure it out, but it's really not our charge. So that's where we were at the last meeting. I just want to update that because, and then again, you know, the reason I say why the finance committees at a select board finance committee, yeah, they are important, but now you're adding a whole slew of voices that are on a finance committee. Well, if you're going to do that, then you might as well bring in some teachers and the principals and the superintendents to give their opinions in terms of the educational benefits, if we're truly trying to inform on both sides of the issue of finances and education. If all you have is finance committee members and none of them have taught, you know, I mean, their lens might just be finances. So, you know, that's my concern. Some of them, you know, will get it. Some of them might not. So, all right, that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to Bill. I do want to bring us back at some point to just taking care of this first issue. Are we going to do a presentation? How are we going to do that? Who's going to be volunteering or to handling some of the logistics? Bill?
I agree, but why not just start with, we're talking about making presentations. So why not frame this conversation around, let's start with giving a PowerPoint to the select boards and the finance committees. I don't care. Because when you get down to the culmination of this project, the finance committees are going to be the ones that are going to have to deal with the true costs of regionalizing, which is beyond our purview. We are not, I personally do not feel competent to sit down and write a regional agreement. That's something for lawyers. We're not the lawyers. It's also in terms of the finance committees being engaged, that process is going to have to involve the towns and some of their finances. So they are going to, when whoever gets into planning the actual district, the towns are going to have to get involved somehow financially beyond these grants. Right now, we're talking about trying to do all kinds of stuff and we have no money. So I'm just being realistic here. The kinds of commitments that are being asked, that are being postulated in this whole discussion are not going to be easy to obtain without some financial backing. And it is apparently the funding is, regardless of how optimistic people want to be about what Comerford or Blaze can do for us, or Heinz, not Heinz anymore because he's out of the picture, I think. But that money isn't there right now. I mean, the 500 grand isn't there in the DESI balance sheet, and it's not, and it may not be. So let's start looking at engaging the towns financially too, perhaps. But beyond that, I think we do have to start somewhere in putting out these messages, and the way to do it is to start doing it. I don't know right now how to access the PowerPoint in order to make a presentation. So that's a beginning point rather than a script, is how do we show this PowerPoint to the select boards? And that's a technology issue. Anyway, that's about it. I think the conversation's been nice so far. And Alan, I think your attempt to give us all kinds of obligations to fill has been very good. But I'm not committing to any of them yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, let's have you comment, and then let's figure out, let's go back and figure out, you know, I think there seems to be consensus that, you know, definitely we do presentations to the finance committees and boards of selectmen or whatever, so that they have it at their level. I haven't given up on yet on, I think that ought to be happening concurrent with, maybe you start there, but it should be happening concurrent, in my opinion, in the schools, where the state, where the stakeholders are going to actually be impacted by this if it happens 2 or 3 years from now. So I'd like to see, when we have a conversation, that we decide that we are or not going to do that, because I think it all should be concurrent. It's all it's where the rubber meets the road of, we have a product now that we can put out there, however, through the PowerPoint, and solicit information from all the stakeholders, and something consistent across the board is important. And then I think people can make informed decisions on the follow-up survey and their discussions with each other, which may influence the finance committee and the select boards before, you know, when they decide to do something on it. Maybe they decide early. I don't know. So we had Mike, your hand's back down. And
Yeah,
Jane,
I still have something.
Mike, are you still on? Your hand was before Jane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put
Go
my
ahead.
hand down so it wouldn't stay up forever.
Okay, and
After you
just
said I
so
would
you
have a
know,
chance to speak.
yeah, just so you know, I'm not being disrespectful. I don't always know when you stop, because my screen freezes sometimes because of the rain and the unstable message I keep getting across the board. So if it sounds like I'm or if I'm interrupting, it's not intentional. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, I was actually going to segue to the presentation by way of answering Jane's question as far as who's going to make this movie. The way I see it, when I say movie, I mean essentially one person or more sitting in front of a laptop, playing the slideshow and talking into the microphone and recording the screen. I think that's pretty easy to do. You end up with sound and pictures, and it's something that could then be posted on our website and played at meetings, and I assume broadcast on TV. So I'm not talking about a Hollywood production. I'm saying that if we can't find someone to do that, then I wonder where we're gonna find people to actually go to meetings and do the same thing. Because all I'm talking about is doing it once, or maybe 2 or 3 times to get it right, because you don't always get it right the first time, but ending up with a nice product when you're done, as opposed to doing it fresh every single meeting while trying to keep it the same. It seems easier to me, but that's just my opinion.
Well, Mike, to that point, and to Bill's, in terms of efficiency, that tends to make a lot of sense to me, in that if we have it, whether it be, we have our slideshow, however we put voice to that. Even if we had what is it, the Berniston television, once they do it and they air it, you could then be in a meeting with folks, and you can go to the website and you could actually play it. So, right off their website. I go there quite frequently to review a portion of a school committee or a presentation that was done there. So we could have it maybe professionally done, working with them, and then use that to the different locations. So we're basically getting it off theirs, and then we have our follow-up comment and ideas and sharing. So that could be very efficient to do that, instead of doing it fresh, and that would involve a lot of personnel with no compensation. Jane? You're on mute. Are you talking, Jane?
Yeah, I'm talking. I like to hear myself.
There.
To your point about BNC TV, once the presentation is made to either Bernardston or Northfield, it'll be on the site. So,
Yeah.
keep that in mind. I hadn't thought of a movie like Mike mentioned, using a laptop to do the recording. I think that's great, and it's simple. And I think it's important that we get the script down first, and then get somebody with a pleasant voice to, or a couple people with real pleasant voices to narrate.
Well, I vote for Deb Pote, since she just put it in the chat. She's got a great voice.
Yes, she does. Yes.
I'd like to offer to help with that, but I guess if it was scheduled when I have an aide for my husband, I could help with it. But if it's not during aide time, I wouldn't be able to. Anyway, I like that.
Yeah.
And my other question is, Alan, what do you mean by concurrent?
That you are bringing it to the parents and community through at their school. So it's connecting. We're taking the time to have a meeting through their PTO or PTA, whatever it is, to present something in their school and get their live feedback after. And the problem gets solved if we have the slideshow with the presentation, and then it's followed up by scribes in terms of comments. So concurrently means while we're doing this with the select boards, we're also getting this out into the schools and to the community, in whichever forums this board decides.
So you'd do it all on the same night if you could?
No. I think it's a good idea to get it out there to the boards of selectmen and do a presentation to them as the leaders in the community, and have that roll out to whenever it fits nicely into a PTO meeting in the respective schools, where parents, teachers, and community are invited to hear it and to make comment.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure where you were going with that word. Thanks.
You're welcome. So if your hand's still up, so I would probably call you again. Jane. All right, are we ready to go back? Mary, do you have any insight to as I'm going to try to pull this back to just focusing on this? Because I think we've got some tasks that came out of this. We need a couple people to volunteer to write a script. I'd be more than happy to work with some folks on that. And maybe you would work with that as well. And then the logistics, it's fairly easy in terms of calling the principal, who's the PTA, can we get on their schedule? And we're doing it, we're just coordinating that. And it makes it really simple now. If we have that on a website, and I am thinking of Bernston, but it could be on whatever, we could professionally have them record it for us. I know they did that when we did a presentation. They let us run through at Gil Montague, or somebody did, they let us run through it as a practice and recorded it. So we could do something like that as well. So Mary, let me go back to you and have you share some of your thoughts.
Well, I actually think that you have covered some of the points that I might have made. And if you're going to have I think the idea of a voiceover is really nice, that you get the consistency and you're not leaving anybody in the position of not being really sure what they're talking about. So that's great. The one question I had, and you all know your select boards a lot better than I do, but is there any way that select boards would be interested in coming together for this kind of a presentation? That you convene the select boards from the different towns for this presentation?
It might have to be remote. What do the folks think?
I
Jane?
would say yes.
Then
I
Mike?
mean, that's how we started with the 4 towns in our district. They all got together.
It seems to me it might be an opportunity for them to hear it, the same presentation together and have the opportunity to talk about it across town.
Yeah.
Just something that occurred to me as you were talking. And that would also lower the demand on your time, which I think everybody would benefit from.
And it could still be in live, like in the Bernardston Senior Center or something like that, or one of the schools, something that's more central.
In a way,
Bernardston's pretty central right now. I don't know.
and taking it off their individual agenda and making it a region-wide or beyond presentation would allow, I think would give it more gravitas and more of you reporting back to all of the communities very visibly.
I'm not even sure the select boards even know who's actually on this committee, the 18 people.
It would be
Right?
great if as many as possible could be at that
Could be there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where
Okay, so-
I was coming from. Talk to the leaders who put us here first. And then.
So that's a good point.
And we'll get some feedback, we'll get some direction from them, and then still continue to do it in the schools with the parents, the teachers,
Right.
superintendents, whatever.
Right. Now, and the next question was about, it does seem to me you need to go to the superintendents first. And I know you will have no trouble with the Gil Montague superintendent, but maybe it's just letting the Pioneer Valley superintendent we just want to make you aware that we are planning these presentations. I don't know whether you need permission for that or you could just go to PTOs, but I think you do owe them sort of the notice.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, those are really my thoughts. I think that making it a little easier on yourself by combining as much as possible so that can really happen.
Good point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that would be a special a special select board meeting, because there's so much business on their regular meeting that, people would be trying to, move on because they've got a lot on their plate. So coordinating a special joint, I like that idea, and do a presentation to all of them and give them an opportunity to just sort of kick it around, maybe meet each other and talk.
Yeah.
So that will have to follow, though. Remember, the primary tasks are getting a script together with voice to have that ready to go. The logistics of how we're putting that together and professionally would be nice, but so we would need a TV network to help in that. We could do it ourselves with a voiceover on a screen. And then once the script is done, it's coordinating that meeting. And we've basically prepared for subsequent meetings as it's rolled out. So we'll come back to that then and see how people feel about it. Mike and then Jane, I think. Oh, and then Greg. You got a white hand, Greg. There's a yellow.
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, to joint meetings, I think that's a great idea. Gil Montague does have a tradition of the Gil and Montague Select Boards, Finance Committees, and the Gil Montague School Committee all getting together to discuss their budget and assessment requests. So that's been in place for several years now. And so we're kind of used to it here. And that would seem like a great forum to, not necessarily, not during that budget meeting, but have the same type of thing, everybody together in one room for this sort of presentation. I do hope, we haven't quite gotten there yet, but we're talking about getting this script together and the presentation. And, Alan, I get your point about getting professional help. I'm not sure we should be too hung up about that. I think that people could do a pretty darn good job with a decent computer. If we can do better than that, great. But, we shouldn't spend a lot of time and energy trying to make that happen. Because I think we can probably do just fine. Especially if anybody, I know Greg likes Macs, and they're famous for doing stuff like this. So, and even PCs can work pretty well. So
I can help out
I
with
think-
that if needed. I have a recording studio here.
Well, we should, well, that's very generous. I think we should all, remember that you have other things to do, but.
It doesn't need to be that fancy, though. I think you're right. Just talking into a computer microphone is fine for this. It's not, you'll get a decent recording of the voice. That's all that matters.
And I'd also like to say that, the STRPB, we have our own website, and we should put that movie right there on the homepage. So yes, it'll be great if it can be on the NCTV. It'll be great if it be on Montague TV. And it will be when, if it's presented at meetings that get recorded. But it should also be on our own website. We should point people prominently to that. And I just like to confirm before we finish this, and maybe, this may be a little later in the discussion, but, we're talking about getting a script together and all that. I personally would like to make sure that we all get to review that before it's finally signed off on. And I know, Alan, you had said that you didn't think that was necessary. I heard you say, I think, that you didn't think that was necessary. And I just like to put out there that I do. So I'm hoping we can at least talk about that.
Okay, I don't recall saying that, but okay. I've got 16 people that can say I did. I don't know. I've been to Greg's studio, and it really is phenomenal what he has. So that's basically, that would be a really easy thing in that he already has a slide presentation. It would be getting someone to, read the script that people come up with there. And we have it there. And as pointed out, once it's done publicly, we'll have that for people to grab right off the BNC TV network, because they do a really good job, and it's, they're pretty easy to find. Jane?
I was going to offer to contact BNC TV, but we may not need them to do a formal recording. And I used to share the 4-town meetings when we had them with Lois, co-chair with Lois from Northfield. So I would be happy to contact the 4 towns and see if they can get together when we decide it's time to do that. Seems like we're not ready for it right now.
I think Mary's point was it would be not just our 4 towns, but it would also be Gill and Montague, that if we're forming a one district, we would want all of them together in one room.
That
have
was
that.
part of my question. That
Mary?
precludes it being in Bernardston. Our senior center, I don't think will accommodate that many people and still be a congenial group. Because we used to set the tables up so we were like a round table. Everybody could see everybody else. We didn't sit in rows like an auditorium. And we wouldn't be able to do that in our senior center. In fact, in order to do that, we need the gymnasium someplace.
Yeah. Mary, was that your intent?
I was throwing it out. I think it would be great if you could get them all together, but if that doesn't work, then your fallback is you have the 2 groups. But I think what's really important is that you figure out a date, because if you don't have that pressure, you might, these are busy people, I'm sure, and having a date on their calendar is going to be really important. And then you can make sure you have your work done by the time you get there, but that you make sure that you have everybody's understanding around a date.
Yeah, I think the best we could do there is put a target date out that we wouldn't want to cross, but not actually select the date, because I think that's going to have to come in consultation with the boards of finding.
No, absolutely. No, that's what I mean. You have to do that work to get the date. You could do a doodle poll to everybody. Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I just want to say it's to your suggestion of getting all 6 towns together. Number one, you said if we're forming a 6-town district. I think Renee's point earlier is we don't know if that's what we're doing or not. It sounds to me as if, I know that getting Gill and Montague together with the school district, it's something that we've done in the past and could easily be done. And the room is big enough to accommodate that, but not a whole lot more. It sounds
Okay.
from what Jane has said is that getting the 4 towns together is something that's been done in the past, but getting a whole lot more than that wouldn't be that easy. So I'm thinking trying to get the 6 towns together, maybe we shouldn't, maybe that's a little too much.
Down the road.
Okay. Greg?
Here, I'll lower my hand. Yeah, I don't know. I think actually trying to get all the towns together is fine. The Gill Town Hall, which is fairly centrally located in all of this, would accommodate a fairly large group. I wouldn't want to not include, Irving. Even if you're tuitioning in, you have a stake in this, even though you may not be voting in the end as a town. So I think it's a good idea. I think I think even if you can't get all the select board members, even if you could get 1 or 2 from each town to be there. I mean, it'd be better if it were in person, because Zoom would be a little bit complicated with that many people. It's not that you can't do it, it's just that when you have that many people and people want to then have discussions, it gets complicated in terms of figuring out who gets to speak when. And then there was one other thing which I can't remember now, but no, I think that could be done. I would like us to focus, if that's what we're going to focus on, is doing the narration for the slideshow. I think it's a good idea. I think if you want to make a movie out of it, that's fine. It's really easy to do. But then that should be our focus. I mean, I have 3/4 of this, facility sort of video done, and I keep looking at it and I'm like, I keep thinking it's not really useful in my opinion. It's a little too, I don't know. It's because you're giving only little snapshots of inside the building, and I just don't think there's a substitute for people if they really want to see these facilities to do the walkthrough themselves. I think a video just showing different sort of common areas and that kind of thing, somewhat useful, but it doesn't really give you a good picture of what you're seeing when you actually visit these schools in person. So I would just say, let's focus on the slideshow and a narration for now, and then try to do more public outreach.
Oh, Alan, you're on mute.
You're muted, Alan.
Thank you. I have an alarm, a grandfather clock that keeps going off, and I haven't figured out how to, I guess I could just stop it. Christy, could I ask you just if you have any comments, just to make sure can be intimidating when you have everyone here. If there are some thoughts you want to share, I want to give you that opportunity. And then I'm going to go over to Renee, who has her hand up again. But your thoughts?
I think doing a voiceover is perfect. I think it makes sense, and getting everybody together, I think also makes sense, because our time is valuable, and I think it's also nice for other towns to hear each other. So hopefully we can all be on the same page, and thinking about getting information to parents in the elementary school, I also think is going to be an important thing, because I know that there's lots of room for that population to really be part of the journey. And I'm excited for them to hear what we have so far. So that's all. I think we're doing good.
Hey, thank you. And Len, did you have any comment?
I think what everybody has said, I think has a lot of value. I do think that the idea of getting these superintendents up to speed, I think is important. And I think the meeting of the group of superintendents together, if we can do that, would be helpful, whether we include the Gil Montague piece. I'll defer to however logistics work out on that. But I think you've got some really important progress and ideas. And I would just urge that we try to move on it as quickly as we can before people get, how do you say, misunderstood ideas, and the gaps get too big in between where people don't remember things clearly. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Renee?
Yeah, I mean, I put my hand down after Greg's comments about, focusing on just the PowerPoint, because my thought was circling back to Jane's notion about using the Berniston Senior Center. And I attended the meetings that she was referencing, the former meetings with the 4 towns, but I think the purpose of this may be different. So the whole roundtable notion might not play for this. Like, it could be rows of chairs watching this PowerPoint and then collecting feedback, similar to the facilitation meetings that Mary ran, and maybe it makes a lot of sense. I don't know about how much time Mary has left with us and if she acted as a facilitator during this or not. Like, I don't know if that's feasible, but I think those meetings really kept the emotion out of it,
Yeah,
which may be in play in these meetings or not. And I think the superintendents should be invited to these as well, because in some of those former meetings, and they happen in this timely fashion that we're sort of playing out right now with budget meetings happening and thinking of forward thinking what the superintendents need to do and being in communications with their towns. That if they were also in attendance, again, it could just normalize it all, that we're all hearing the same information and processing and having a common lived experience around this information. So I think we might want to broaden it to the superintendents and sort of put out to them that it's sort of a hope and a dream that they can come, like, and maybe apply some, not pressure might not be the right word, but if town officials said to them, you know, this is something we are interested in finding out more about, and we hope you are coming alongside us in this journey. I think that might help them get there.
Okay, I was gonna do a little wrap up of what I thought I heard. Bill, go ahead.
I just want to bring up two things real quick. Is one, the 6-town regional planning board is on the agenda every meeting for the Gil Montague for me to bring updates to them. So Gil Montague is directly engaged. And secondly, so is our superintendent. So I think we're halfway there in terms of getting the superintendents involved. It's the other half that we have to work on. And then lastly, let's just start getting the PowerPoint out there to whatever groups can listen, want to listen, whether it's all the select boards or the individual ones, but let's get it together and put it out there as soon as we can. And that starts the whole process of everyone eventually getting informed. Thanks.
Okay. Jane, you want to do, by the way, your people are breaking up from time to time because it's really pouring out here. So I think I'm getting most of what you're saying. Jane, last hand, if you have it up to talk again, and I'm going to try to do a wrap up of what I heard, and then you can give me the yes or no on each one. Jane?
Okay, I just want to say that Renee's idea of including the superintendents is terrific. I think that should happen. And I do think it's best to have the first meeting with each district group by itself, not try to go for the whole piece. I don't think we're there yet. Sorry, that's my feeling.
Okay.
That's all. Then, and
Yeah.
sitting in rows will fit in the senior center rather than, round table.
All right, I'm going to do a little review, and if you don't hear all this, Greg, maybe you could step in and help out. Task 1, we'll get some people together and we'll do a voiceover and presentation, so we have that within our control. And I'm hoping we can get I don't know if Deb, she's not here now, but someone to do the voiceover that in Greg's studio, which he has offered. So that would be one thing that we could get done fairly quickly. The second thing, and I don't want to take it off the table, is that BNC TV is really good about, even if you don't have an audience, we'll record it for you and make it available. So I want to keep that option open, because it's a place we could also send people if they don't make it to our website or to a live presentation, a live meaning our voiceover presentation. So the third thing is we would coordinate a meeting within the Gil district and using the format, the Gil Montague district that they're accustomed to. The same would happen with Berniston or with the 4 towns. and the format that they're accustomed to. We get someone to coordinate that. And we would present that. But it's really important that I have plenty of poster paper we have some scribes there to make sure we're capturing accurately the feedback. Because in the end, we would want to take all this information and write a report ourselves about what we heard from this reach out to all these different stakeholders. I'm sorry, I just added that. That wasn't part of what was said before. And then we would also, I think, want to, and I'm going to use the word concurrently again, start getting logistics in place to conveniently, when PTOs are in principals think it's okay, and they can put it in their schedule, that we do it with them as well. And it goes without saying that all of this has to happen with communication with the superintendents first, to let them know what's going on, because we would want to have a cover letter that we're asking the superintendents to let the principals send out to the parents and to the teachers and so forth, that gives them a heads up on what's going to happen at this meeting, what their expectations are, and what it's all about. So basically, it's an email that's sent out through the schools, whether it be the superintendent or via principals with permission of the superintendent, that lays all the groundwork of here's what will be happening at the meeting. And and then we need a target date. And maybe we can pick that up at the last thing, because that's really important. How far are we willing to push this out? Do we want to make sure that these rollouts happen no later than the first week in November? I'm just making that up. We can certainly open that up, or by the end of October, maybe put a little more pressure on. But please give me feedback now on what I may have not heard correctly. I'm probably summarizing and putting in some of my own biases without intentionally knowing it. Greg?
No, I think that sounds okay. I think to Jane's point, I think what we could do is try to plan out 3 meetings, and they're staggered, where you have the Gil-Montague district meaning the select boards. If you want, these are going to be open meetings. I think what we should do is invite. You can invite the finance committee, that's fine, but I think you can invite teachers, you can invite superintendents and principals to come and have their voice in the room, so that the town leaders are hearing those voices, and that it's not just inviting just select board and finance committees, because I think there's no reason to just invite those. We can invite whoever we want, and they're open meetings. Do one for Pioneer, and then also do one in the distance after they've met with the entire 7 towns, really, include Irving. Again, there's stakeholders. There are people that have vested interest in this, and do a meeting that way. One thing just to bring up, I'm going to share with you. I'm not sure. I keep coming back to the Mars reports, and I think it's important to kind of look at that. They did propose a timeline for us, and here is the beginning of that timeline, and we've done a lot of this work. And we have looked at the advantages of regionalization. We've looked at the expanded curricular offerings. We have spoken with teachers and administration and staff. A few things we haven't quite done yet, like doing necessarily a single salary schedule, although we did come up with a financial tool to be able to do some of that. So I think some of that's included in here. Where we are, they say at the end of this particular time cycle here was that by January 31st, we as a board should make a decision, or that was the proposal, was to make a decision whether to move forward, and if so, then go into a regional agreement. So that says that right here. So the time frame, we're about maybe 9 months behind, 8 months behind, which is not a surprise considering the pandemic. And then, September 1st, which is about where we're at now through June 30th, was to develop the new regional agreement if we had decided to move forward as a board. And that was up to us. And then the following year would be, the planning board sends the draft regional agreement. So we're not that far behind. I just wanted to put that into context, that this was the timeline that they had drawn up for us. And, we're doing okay. I think if we can grab the information that we're looking to get from select boards and those, 2 or 3 meetings, if we can set them up, that's my proposal, just so that we do get everybody in the same room at some point. Because I think it would be, to Christie's point, it would be good to hear other towns and have that crosstalk. And then after that, we have to kind of decide whether we're going to move forward. If we do, then we move forward with the regional agreement. So that's all I got. Anybody want to see any more of this, or? I just thought it was helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Greg, I think it's very helpful. It's optimistic that
Well,
we're not that far behind.
no, we're not really. I mean, I don't think they thought it was going to be easy either.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. no,
Yeah, the only thing that, and I remember thinking this like a year ago, that it seemed like the school committees were going to review it for, more informational purposes of this is what the new roles would be and how it would be formed and things like that. So they become familiar with it. But they were just reviewing it. It's the towns that are forming it, and it's going to be the towns that are actually going to be working to decide, the representation, the assessments, the formula, all of those things with attorneys to pull that together and then getting it out for information. So it just seemed, the way they structured it, it seemed like the school committee is going to review it and give some kind of approval or not. And I don't think that's the way that rolls out. This is going to be decided by the towns. That's all. Just a passing comment. So thank you, Greg. That helps in terms of bringing us back to, we had a number of tasks to do. And I think, someone else pointed this out too, that, what our individual tasks were. Might have been Bill. Mike?
Yeah, well, first to the point you just made, I agree that it's the towns that are going to be making this decision. It does occur to me that if a new district is formed, it's going to need a school committee. And that school committee is one of the first jobs of that school committee is going to be negotiating new contracts, because I don't think that's part of the regional agreement. Regional agreement will handle school committee composition and assessment calculations, but I think that things like contracts with staff and a number of other issues will be decided by the new school committee. So, and I think the likeliest prospects for people to be on a new school committee might well be people who are on the existing school committees. So just keeping in mind, if those people are on board with making this happen, if that's the way we want to go, it might be helpful, because certainly it seems to me if you have a bunch of school committee members who think it's a terrible idea and the town said, well, we want to do it anyway, well, you got to find another group of people to actually form that school committee and make it work. I'm thinking that our next step, I mean, this all sounds great, setting up these meetings, but are we going to have a meeting of this board to review the script that is come up with before a recording is made? I would recommend that. And it seems to be if we set a date for that, that gives a deadline to make it happen. Once that's done, the recording still has to be made. So it isn't as if we're done, but maybe at that point, conversations could could become more serious about, well, when one of these other meetings going to occur, because until we have that done, it's kind of speculative.
So is the script going to be that hard to write? I don't think so, because the presentation is pretty clear, straightforward. So we need
I
a
would
couple
still like to
people to
review it
start
all.
with.
If it's not hard.
I
we can
know,
have a
I'm not
meeting next
arguing
week.
that point. Mike,
Okay.
I'm not,
Sorry.
thank you. So we need a couple people to write the script. When we think we can pull that off, Greg, and if we're using your studio, maybe you could give me a window of when you think we could get a couple people to do that. We then can plan for a meeting once I hear from you when you think that's doable. We can, and we should be able to do that tonight in terms of, what you're thinking. And then we'll pick a date to review it at our next meeting. So we'll plan on a meeting for that purpose, and then we'll act on that, and then we'll start coordinating the report, the meetings that we're talking about. So we're looking at a calendar, which goes back to, Mary's point, what's the target date? Greg, how much? I don't see it as a lot of work. Do you think that can be done within the next week and a half?
Well, I think to Mike's point, you want to write the script first, and once you have the script and we all agree on it, then it won't take long at all. I mean, you honestly don't really need a professional quality studio to do a voiceover. It's not, I mean, I have stuff that can easily be done just right on a laptop. I mean, if we want to go that far, it'll sound great, but it's not really that necessary. Your voice will sound better than.
Well, is it more efficient?
Whoever it is.
Greg,
What's that?
is it more efficient I said, would it be efficient to just have a couple people write a script and send it out to everybody? People
Mhm.
review it,
I was just gonna
make their comments.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
that we
Yeah, I mean,
are.
And if you want to do it here, that's fine. I mean, it really would not take long. Because if it's very easy. If you make a mistake, that doesn't mean we have to start over. You just make a mistake and you just redo the sentence, and I'll just edit it all together. It won't take long at all.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. So my
That's-
point is that we write the script, we send it out. We unless there's major differences, like someone says it ought to say this and something says something different, then we call a meeting and we do that. Otherwise, we could have our input. Michelle and then Mike.
No, I was just gonna suggest that, Deb said she would be willing to write it up, and maybe she can start it, send it around by email. We don't need to have, I don't think we need to have meetings. I think that just will prolong our doing this. So I'm all for sending it around by email. That's all I was gonna say.
And getting feedback. Mike and then Mary.
Well, I'm all for sending it around by email too, but I think that's a violation of the open meeting law. It's deliberation by this body via email. And I agree that having meetings prolongs the process. It's a challenge of the open meeting law. And I think the open meeting law, I've got my own opinions about the open meeting law. I think it's a good thing, but it makes things a lot harder for groups like this.
I'm not sure that.
But I think we,
Mike,
think
I don't
we have to have a
agree.
meeting.
I don't agree with that. I think you can, as long as the person is, it's just like, if someone sends all their information to a superintendent and they put it all together, there's no violation of, or to a party that's not deliberating on it. So if someone sends out a document and their individual response is going back to that one person who's putting it together, I don't think there's a problem with that. I'd have to think twice about, okay, if we have an end product, would that be a violation? Does it have to go back to a meeting for a vote? I'd have to look at that.
I would like this board to approve the final script.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I think
Mary,
oh, sorry.
I didn't.
I'm
know.
okay.
I-
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Mary?
I think Mike's right. I mean, that becomes more like a serial communication to an agreement by the board. So I kind of agree. I agree with Mike on that one. But oh, geez, I lost my train of thought. I'm getting tired, I guess. I don't know about you
Yeah.
guys, but
Well, we can come back and make a vote on it. So
Yeah,
we'll
well, let me-
target a date. I'll grab my calendar.
yeah. Oh, I was going to mention. I mean, I know there's been some remarks about, you know, and I know it's targeted at my writing the response to the recorder. I mean, part of the reason why I had suggested it to Alan that we bring it to the board for approval, but we're getting so far out, and to then take that response. And the reason why we both decided that it was okay to send it to the newspaper was because all the information that I took was directly from the PowerPoint. I didn't really say anything in that response. It was really just, I was really disappointed with Kinsella. She hasn't been to any of our meetings. She hasn't made an attempt to really participate in anything that we're doing. And yet she jumps on board with Natalie Blay and Comerford and basically inserts herself into the narrative and says it's all about finances. That was really disappointing. And it was a very lopsided story that came out. And we needed to respond sooner than later. And if we got bogged down into another, 2 meetings of trying to piece together what we had already put together in PowerPoint, I mean, I understand, and we did discuss it. So, and I get your point, and it's well taken. And it's not that we'll do this again. It was just that it was kind of pressing, and it was already going on a month without a response, and we really needed to say something, and not let Kinsella actually, I mean, who's come, she's only been in this area for a year, has not really participated, and it's very disappointing, in my opinion. And her inserting herself into the narrative when she hasn't been to our meetings, she hasn't spoken with us, she hasn't participated in any of the open forums, is rather disappointing. And then to come out and say it's all about finances is just not correct. So anyways, I just felt like
I know it's late. I don't want to make
Yeah.
a big deal, but the paragraph about busing, I thought was inaccurate. And so all I say is next time, just say it's your, these are my personal opinions, and then everything's fine.
Well, but that comes right out of, it does come right out of the PowerPoint.
No, it
You
didn't. I'm
basically
sorry.
said-
If we should have a longer discussion about this if you want, because I don't believe it came right out of. You said there was minimal, I mean, the PowerPoint doesn't say there's minimal effect. PowerPoint says bus rides could increase by 20 minutes. If you consider that minimal, then fine. But that's not what the PowerPoint says. PowerPoint says could increase by up to 20 minutes, might be shorter for some students, and would be a maximum of an hour. That's what the PowerPoint says.
And that's what he
And-
said.
Well, no, it's not.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry.
I thought it
He
was an
says people have
excellent.
concerns, but there's not much effect. The implication I got from the
think
paragraph was,
in terms of that, Mike, I think that's pretty minor. I mean, in terms of
well,
in terms
I'm
of the
I'm
overall
chair of
thing.
the FTF subcommittee, okay? We did look at transport, just the one thing about transportation, I mean, I'm, maybe I'm off base, maybe everybody else is in a different place. That was my feeling. Looking at that paragraph was, wait a minute, that's not what we said. And I think the 20 minutes is significant. I think that having a bigger district, overall, the bus rides are going to be longer. I don't think we should minimize that.
For
Maybe
some.
that's not a big enough problem. Maybe it's not a problem at all. Maybe it's not a reason to be concerned or to think we shouldn't do this. But I think it's a fact that the bus rides will be longer, and to say, well, there won't be much effect, does not convey that. in
But
my opinion.
Mike, they're not going to be longer for everyone, not for all students. That's just not how
I
it
think
works.
they will be longer overall. I think they have to be longer overall.
How, I don't know how you come up with that. Yeah, there's no way.
Because you've got a bigger district. The buses are traveling farther, longer distances.
It depends on the bus routes, where they start and stop.
You've
But
got a
that's-
bigger district, Greg. You can't have a bigger district, have all the bus routes be the same or less.
but you're
I
talking
don't think it's
about,
possible.
but you're
I
talking
don't
about
think it's possible.
two, but you're not thinking that there's two separate enrollments going, one's going up there and none of that's changed for those students up there, right? So some of it, depending on how it's designed and when it starts, right? And then you have another building that's down there. It's not like a building is closed and all of a sudden now they all have to go to one building, right? I mean, some of them will be on the bus a little longer and some are going to be on the bus shorter. I mean, it's just the way it is. The Gill students
It's
in
not
Gill,
what the
depending on where the
PowerPoint
bus route
says.
starts, it's a wash. It's the same distance practically.
I don't think it's a wash. I don't think it's a wash, Greg. I really don't.
Okay, I'm
And
gonna
that's not what the
jump in
PowerPoint
here.
says.
I
because
would like to
There's not
respond to
gonna be a
that.
meeting of the minds
It
right
may-
here,
It
so I'm
may
gonna
not be a
kind of
wash,
stop
but
it.
there's going to be plenty of kids that are on the bus a shorter time than they're on now. And the way that wording was in the report did not indicate that. And I was delighted to see that Greg pointed that out very clearly, that there's a balance to this busing question. And if you want to know how many are going to be on the bus longer, then you need to lay out the routes, and you can't do that till you know where your students live. And 3 years from now, who knows where they are? So
Correct.
I think yes, there are some kids who are going to be on that bus longer, but I think there are more kids that are going to be on less. That's just my opinion.
Well, I disagree.
Okay.
I don't see how that's possible. Let's
Okay.
put it that way.
We
Well-
don't have to debate that anymore. It is what the point was, Mike wanted to, he had an issue with one of the comments and he would like things to come to the script to come in front of the board for a vote, and we could do that. I still would go, and I think that's right. That probably makes the most sense. So let's get a script together, get it out to everybody. It'll go back, it'll be reviewed by the board, and then it will be done on a makeover. When can all that happen? I have an October calendar out. And I had on the agenda, maybe that's too far out now. I had penciled in, when did I pencil in? The next
25th
meeting.
and 26th.
Thank you, Bill. Got it. Is that too far out now, or should we make that one of those dates in order to approve the, that's far,
Yeah, move it in.
to approve this? It just seems like it's too far out now.
I agree. Yeah,
Maybe if we could at least have the meetings coordinated with the boards, respective boards and finance committees and the two locations talked about previously. Maybe we make that the target date for those, to at least have them nailed down by the 25th or 26th, and possibly even be doing the presentations and back up to, I mean, this is basically a script and a voiceover.
yeah.
So
Hey, Alan,
Greg,
what
what do you think?
Exactly what date are you looking for to have the script done? Because to Mike's point, I think it is really important to get that script in and to have us vote on it so that we're all in agreement on it.
Right.
So
Could
what-
we
what-
have it done
By what date?
by the 12th? Could we have the
By-
script done by the 12th?
Well, that's going to be, I think, up to Deb, and she's not here. So,
I
wasn't she
think
the one
that's
that?
asking too much.
Yeah, that might be a little tight.
All right. How about the 19th?
I think you could go 2 weeks and then
Yeah.
with Deb's approval. And if Deb says 2 weeks isn't enough, then we need to have a backup date.
Good idea.
All right.
Yes.
So why don't we plan on at least our meeting date and then try to have this happen prior to that?
What about?
This happening, meaning the script. So can we meet on the 25th or 26th?
Yes.
I thought we were gonna move it back a week. That we were gonna allow Deb 2 weeks unless she objects.
Yes.
So the 18th or 9th, the 19th would be 2 weeks. I hate Wednesdays. 18th or 19th that week would give her 2 weeks, and we are scheduling that subject to Deb's approval that the script can be done by then.
And therefore, we would have a meeting on the 18th or 19th.
Right, to vote on the script and nothing else.
Here.
Ellen, I'm not gonna be able to do Wednesdays,
Okay,
October, November, December. That's my budget subcommittee meetings.
Oh,
yeah, I'm looking at Tuesday, I guess, the 18th.
Right.
That works for me.
Yes,
Okay, so 6:30 would be our next full meeting of the Six-Town Regional. Greg, can you reach out to Deb and see if you can coordinate, oh, your hand's up. See if you could coordinate with her to have something prior to, maybe on the 14th or 15th, so it can be sent out to folks, and they can see it.
So we can,
What
yeah,
do
so
you
we can
think?
have a meeting on the 19th. Yeah. Yeah, I can,
18.
or 18th, sorry, yeah. Yeah. I will,
Okay,
I'll send that out right now.
can I throw in?
Right.
Deb actually said she's willing to help write a script. If she wants some help, I'm willing to volunteer.
thank you. Thank you,
If she
Bill.
wants to do it herself, I'll volunteer that too.
Okay. All right. And you guys, yeah, okay, it's a working group. Greg, Deb, and Bill.
Oh, all right, cool.
All right, and then that will try to get that to us at least maybe on the 14th,
How did
so
I get
people can look
included?
at it the 15th,
All of a sudden I'm
because
included.
we're doing it,
Definitely done.
well, it's gonna be at your studio.
Oh, I see. Well, no, we don't want to do that yet. I mean, that won't take long.
No, I
think
know,
You want to get the script done and then just, they can write, the two of them can write the script, and then whoever decides to narrate it can come in whenever after that, after it's approved. It won't take long.
are you not volunteering, Greg?
To write the script? Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
just, you just kind of haphazardly threw me in there. I mean,
Well,
I'm fine
Would you
if
like
they,
to volunteer?
I
or
think
not?
I trust that Bill and Deb would do a fine job, but I guess they could reach out to us if they have any questions, but
Yeah, how about we do this, Greg?
Yeah.
Deb's the point person. You get in touch with her and let her know that we're taking up on her offer. And if she wants to run stuff by you to reach out, she can touch bases with you and Bill.
okay. I'll let her know that
Okay.
Bill offered to help. And that
Yeah,
that
okay.
Alan and I are available if they have questions. All right.
Perfect. All right, so we have our date and
Yeah, you could tell her.
we have that.
be on the. She said, I think she said something about the charts.
Yeah, Mike, you would be available too, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
For questions. All right, I'll put your name in there too.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're in wrap-up mode, I think, because we had a lot of good conversations. I don't know if I think, well, why don't we just, we'll just focus on this piece. And if you feel, anybody connected with their boards, if you want to give them just a heads up that, we're working on this and we're going to be trying to coordinate a meeting so that they can be starting to think about that, because if we push that off, that idea about coordinating a meeting, we know that we're going to have a vote to start pulling this forward. You should probably try to coordinate a meeting early November
I'll work on it
and get
for finding.
that going.
Jane, if you need any help,
for
I'll help
Pioneer.
you.
Mike,
Thank you.
Mike, do you want to spearhead that, trying to coordinate it with the town officials in that group that you have been involved in?
I'll let them know that the plan is to try to get a meeting together for November. I don't know if I can volunteer.
Can
to
you
set it
ask
up.
them to see if they can agree on a date? No, can you see if you can agree to, have them agree to a date? So they can start that conversation and coordinate it with all their schedules?
Sure.
Okay. All right, let's just go down to the funding piece so we can close that up. So the state funding. Greg, why don't you do a quick review of that? I feel like I've talked too much during this meeting.
What, and I haven't? Well,
The regionalization.
yeah,
efficiency,
the regionalization. So where it stands now is we will be applying it for a efficiency and regionalization grant, which I think, let's see, Mike, you probably remember the one back from the civic leaders. It was one of the first ones we did. We got awarded, I think it was 109,000. So it's the same ENR grant. As far as what I can tell, the wording has changed so that the deliverables are not quite as concrete as they used to be, which allows for us to be able to craft it in sort of the same way we were crafting our grants for the DESI grant. So we should be okay. I spoke with both Comerford. I actually talked to Natalie Blay a number of times about it. And they are behind it and willing to write letters of support to make sure we get the funds that we need. They were apologetic that the DESI grants went away. It was kind of a legislative sort of snafu mix-up where it got taken out, and I think the Senate was expecting the House to put it back in, and then it didn't happen, and so it never actually made it into the budget. They were thinking about trying to push it into the supplementary budget, but they were saying there's not really that time to wait, so apply for the ENR grant, and they would write letters of support, including whips, and probably, I'm sure, Paul Mark, since he's probably going to be taking over for Hines. So that's where we stand. It opens October 10th, closes November 10th. And I reached out to Joanne Blyer last week, and she sent me the old grant that Sullivan wrote. So we can use that as a template, since it's a little different than the DESI grant. So I think we're in good shape. I just don't know when the funds will be awarded. It looked like the last time, back in 2017, the funds weren't really awarded. I think he submitted it in probably October, and the funds, or no, it was November. And they received the award in January, so that's where it stands.
All right, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think I need to make this comment, having heard that now and having heard our previous dialogue. So Greg and I, let's say we start working on this in October, and on the 10th, when we get the green light. We'll probably start before that. The issue is going to be that we're trying to roll this out. We're trying to get feedback from presenting it to the boards and listening to their conversation. And then we're going to roll it out to the community. Well, that rollout is real close to the submission date. We can wait till the day before, but if we have to submit it by November 10th, and we're writing a grant to kind of move forward on the work that has to be done, we haven't gotten enough feedback probably from the from the constituents. So it's a little bit problematic that I don't see it happening, but let's say Gil Montague all got together and say, we don't want to do this anymore, or Pioneer or whatever. And now we have this grant. I guess we forego the funds to it, but that looks a little silly. So we're going to have, like you say, Greg, we're going to have to craft this in such a way that it gives us the resources probably to help our other outreach efforts to have those things in place. And so that will be really the structure of the grant and how we'll frame it. I just want to be upfront about that we'll be making those funds available for consultants to help facilitate these reach out efforts and getting feedback, maybe preparing a new survey based on this and so on. So just people keep that in mind, that it's not quite lining up as well as I was hoping for the due date and the work we're doing, because we'll just be starting the reach out. Does that make any sense? I mean, do you understand my little bit of hesitation?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm just being a little paranoid, but just want to put it out there. We're being optimistic. All right. Any other comments before? This was I really appreciate the dialogue that we have, and particularly the pushbacks and the, going back and forth between what we might be able to do and not be able to do, and the different perspectives. That makes us become a more perfect whole in our work. So I see we've lost Deb, we've lost, I don't see Jane anymore. So anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Can I just ask you a quick question? Sorry.
Yes, Kate, yeah.
And this might not be the right, you might not be the right group, but you might be able to help direct me, because this kind of came up in our school committee meeting last month. And basically, I'm just wondering who you would suggest that I talk to about our current agreement that we do have with Gil Montague. And what would happen if this regionalization goes through? Like, where does Irving stand in that? What if Irving wants a different stance in that, whether they want to go with it and that's where their children go to, or they want to choose a new school to go to, or they want to be a voting member? Like, those were some of those questions that came up, and it sounds more of like a lawyer question, or I don't know who I would ask, but if someone had an idea of the right direction of who to kind of start that conversation with, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, so presently you have an agreement with Gil Montague. Have you seen that agreement and know when how is it a 2 or 3 year agreement? When the end time of that agreement?
It's from years ago, like I want to say 10 plus years ago, like nothing. Okay. It's literally on a piece of paper, handwritten. It's from a long time ago. And to my knowledge, it hasn't changed. And the only thing that's a little weird in it is saying that if we wanted to leave for whatever reason, we would need to give 5 years, which that is the question. Like, does that become null and void if this happens? Like those kind of terminology ish, and like what our options are and what do we have as a position. Can we say we want to join but we want a voting spot, or we want this but we want this too, or that kind of thing?
Yeah I would reach out to the superintendent first and see if there are any other documents relating to the tuition agreement. And from my limited perspective, I would say that if it's forming a new district, that would become null and void because it's no longer an agreement with Gil Montague. So it'd be agreement with the new district. And then you could negotiate to set what the terms are. But to that point, Caitlin, that's exactly why we need to go into the schools now, do a presentation to the school committee as well, and do something in the school to present that so that people will can think about, do they want their kids to go if this happens to a new, this new district? Or do the parents have other ideas? So we've been remiss, in my opinion, and I own that. I wasn't thinking very well in terms of the importance of that to the kids' education in Irving, and I plan to correct that. So start there, and can you send me an email and I'll give you my phone number and we can talk on the phone, because there's some other things that
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
share in terms of what you should be looking at as you're doing that.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
let's see if we can get a couple examples of other tuition agreements. Okay, so you can see what other systems have for tuition agreements that they've set up with school systems. Mike, did you want to? I think your hand's
Yeah,
up.
I was gonna make a comment. I agree with what you said. I think it's good advice. My take, and I'm not a lawyer, is, first of all, if you really want legal advice, you should probably talk to a lawyer, but you may find that different lawyers give you different answers. So, that can be an issue. But your agreement is with the Gilmontague School District. If the Gilmontague School District ceased to exist, that agreement would be null and void. You would be free to try to craft a new agreement with any school district you chose. And that would be on the terms that you and the district, Irving and the district agreed to. So if you wanted to try to make it the same, you could try to do that. If you wanted to try to have it be different in some ways, you could try to do that. There would, obviously the new district would have to agree to that. It seems to me, given all that if Irving is interested or thinks it might well be interested in having an agreement with a new district, keeping the lines of communication open with this board would be useful for you and for us, so that everybody could be kind of aware going forward, either, gosh, Irving, is thinking maybe they got better options and they, if this happens, they're going to be doing something else, or, hey, Irving likes the idea of this new thing and would like to be part of it in some way. And so maybe we can figure out a way that can happen. And if you wanted to be part of a new district, it seems to me, even though you haven't been officially part of the board, we could write a district agreement that included you. From what I've heard, and I haven't paid a lot of attention to Irving, I live in Montague. What I've heard is that Irving has its reasons to not want to be part of a regional district, that it prefers tuitioning in for some financial reasons. But if that changes and, you guys think that you'd really like to be an actual part of the district and have a voting school committee member and all that, it certainly would be possible for our board to write a district agreement. If we get that far, that would make that possible.
Yeah, I was being
Right, Caitlin,
completely
send me an
hypothetical,
email.
so I have no
Yeah,
idea
Yeah.
of who thinks what way. It was just, some
Yeah.
questions that came up of what does this look like, or what could it look like, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Send me an email with your phone number and we can talk, because
Okay.
I've got some I can share with you. All right, is there, Bill, do you
Thank
have
you.
something you'd like to say? Yes?
No, we've had enough. That's good. Those are
I'm
good
looking for a
questions
motion,
from
Bill.
Irving. I think they're easily answered.
Yeah. For the greater good, does anyone have, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I guess since Bill didn't put it out there, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
I think I heard, who did I hear? Len?
Yes.
Len moved it. Who seconded it?
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, Mike seconded it. All right, all those in favor, Mike,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Greg,
Aye.
Bill,
Yep.
When I.
Michelle, I.
Renee,
Aye.
Bye.
Christie, and Caitlin, thank you for joining us. We look forward to you being a regular here. All
Yeah,
right, good
thank you
evening,
for
everyone.
having me.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the evening. What's left?
Caitlin,
It's 9:00.
can you send me your
Aye.
email?
Yep.
I'm gonna send, and everybody, I'll set up a Zoom meeting I'll send an email out this evening. So you should get one this evening. If you can save it, you'll have it for the 19th. And
That's great. Thanks, Mike.
Okay,
That's a good idea.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Au revoir.